Then St. Paul goes on, he says, for yourselves know how you ought to follow us, for we behaved not disorderly, behaved not ourselves disorderly among you. So St. Paul was saying, we were decent people when we were with you. We respected you. And here's the whole purpose of incentive, of why people work. That he that ploweth should plow in hope, and that he that thresheth in hope should be partaker of his hopes. In other words, if somebody's going to come in and demand that if you're plowing things, whatever comes up out of the ground, you should give it all the tribute to Caesar. That's what they used to do in the Soviet Union. People didn't work. And today there is no Soviet Union. There is no incentive for people to work. It was a government trying to enslave its people. Said, don't worry about things, we'll take care of you. And all they did was suppress and make slaves of their people. So I'm saying we have to look out for the spiritual freedom involved in these laws that are reflected right in the Christian Bible.
Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my Journey Faithful Compassion Hub. I'm Beatrice. If you've been following part 1, we have explored the breath of life, the law of love, the start of the existence, and the essence of the soul. But life isn't just about being and feeling. It's also about how we act in the world, how we work, how we honor responsibilities, and how we treat others. Today we are diving into laws 3, 4, and 5, the hidden lessons in work, responsibility, and fairness that most people miss. If you are ready, let's uncover them together.
The third law, I'm moving right along this morning, so. This third law deals with the welfare system, and it tells about the responsibility we have to make our own way as much as we can in this world. Now, I'm not talking about people who are on retirement because they've paid into a system, over 20, 25, 30 years in this, because, according to the laws of society, they have a right to retire. Because when you get older, you just simply don't have the energy of a young person to go out there and do some of the physical things that are necessary to earn a good living. It's not possible. So law number 3 is work for your food. And this comes from St. Paul to the Thessalonians. And I quote from the King James, but its language is a little bit obscure. I grew up with it, and I was very used to it, so it's easy for me. But I try to put myself into the shoes of some people who barely can understand their native tongue and have a hard time reading and writing it today, because sometimes the educational system, which soaks up a lot of money, does not somehow translate across into greater education. And so that we are spending a lot of money to raise a lot of illiterate children. So I don't think some of you would have a chance, especially if you don't have a Christian background. You wouldn't have a chance with the King James Version. And so I won't read all of this, for instance, I'll give you an example. Withdraw yourself from every brother that walketh disorderly, and not after the tradition which he received of us. I mean, maybe it's pretty straightforward, but St. Paul is saying, don't associate with people who are disorderly, and because they are not following in the tradition that we, like St. Paul and the apostles, were trying to give to the early Christians. We too in Eck today are in the same position, where we are trying to set an example for those who are going to come after us. And it's difficult. It's very difficult. Then St. Paul goes on, he says, for yourselves know how you ought to follow us, for we behaved not disorderly, behaved not ourselves disorderly among you. So St. Paul was saying, we were decent people when we were with you. We respected you. Something this basic We respected you. Neither did we eat any man's bread for naught. Means we didn't just take somebody else's bread, without doing something in return, but wrought with labor and travail night and day. Means we worked and did whatever we could, whatever our mission was. Maybe they were missionaries, and maybe that was the work that they did where they earned their food, or maybe they did other things. Maybe they washed the pots and pans, for the family, and maybe they carried wood in, or they did things like this. But they did all this work night and day that we might not be chargeable to any of you, which basically means that we didn't owe you anything in the way of rent or any other thing that anyone can say, you didn't carry your own weight. St. Paul was saying, we carried our own weight, and this is the tradition that we were trying to give to the rest of you. These are good principles. And again, we're addressing the welfare systems. Then St. Paul continues, not because we have not power, but to make ourselves an ensample unto you to follow us. In other words, he was saying, oh yeah, we could be the big guys and say, hey, we're in town, take care of us, we're going to do our mission and stuff, we're going to do our preaching, and then feed us, give us room and board and all this, and then we'll be on our way. Yeah, we could use our position over you and all this, but he said we didn't do it because we have not power, not because we have not power. He's saying, yeah, we could have pulled rank on you, and then you would have probably put up with it. But he said, no, we didn't do that. We wanted to be an example for you. And then he says again to the Thessalonians, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you. And this is the important point, that the people who are putting together legislation for reform of the welfare system and all this need to understand that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Very simple, very straightforward. At least some of you work. Or have worked, so you understand. And then he continues and closes here, for we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Very nice touch. There are some good things in all the different scriptures, and we are trying not to be exclusive and say that our own scriptures are the final word, because there are wonderful things in the Christian scriptures. But I feel the teachings of Ecko further in other things, in the demonstration of how to live a life of love instead of law.
So most of the time we find the human condition is self-serving, selfish. People often want power and control rather than to serve God and life with love. This is the great problem. The third law, the one about work, it's really about our responsibility to make our way in the world. And the hidden truth is spiritual. Every effort we make is an expression of our soul, a way to align with divine love in action. If we work honestly, we are participating in creation itself. Most people think this only applies to physical labor, but it's also about emotional and spiritual work, healing relationships, learning, patience, facing challenges. That's the deeper level Harold hints without saying it outright. Notice how St. Paul worked day and night to earn his food, not to gain power, but to set an example. This is not just historical, it's spiritual. If we take without giving, we block the flow of divine responsibility. For me, this law is a reminder that life is not about shortcut. Every task, no matter how small, is sacred when done with consciousness. Every effort is a step towards soul freedom.
Law number 4, this deals with our responsibilities or our duty to the government. Now we're talking tax levies. Law number 4, give tribute to God and Caesar. So in this case, the Pharisees, they were trying to trick Jesus into making statements against the Roman government, which they were trying to do because then they could bring the Roman government down on him and have him put in jail or something. So someone very cleverly asked him, is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? Jesus was very, very sharp. He says, show me a coin. They said, sure. Gave him a coin. I believe it was a denarius, which is worth, maybe 20 cents or something at some point or another. Values of coin changes. And he says, whose image is on this coin? They said, Caesar's. And superscription, Caesar's. And Jesus said, render, which means give. Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. And of course they marveled at how he had sidestepped their trap, and he just kind of walked out from the side, very nicely. He said, boy, that was really sharp. This guy knows his stuff. That's a good one. I like all of these. Law number 5. The last one was, law number 4 was about the people's duty to the government. This one is the government's duty to the people. And I think this one, being way down the line, is one that government officials like to forget about. Because when they forget about it and they take more than they're due through taxes, they enslave the people they are ruling. Because if you don't have money in a society, you're nothing. You have no freedom. And don't expect the government leaders, who are all too human, working and wrestling with the karmic problems of control and power, to be working in your best interest. They're not. They're working in their own best interest. Law number 5, reward the laborer. St. Paul to Timothy, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward. 1 Timothy 5:18. And then St. Paul was trying to explain the same concept to the Corinthians in another letter. And he quotes this law again about thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. And so he asked, he says, does God take care of oxen? Well, from his viewpoint, no, God takes care of people, not oxen. And so then he continues his argument. He says, or saith he it altogether for our sakes? And then he answers himself. He says, for our sakes, no doubt, this is written. And here's the whole purpose of incentive, of why people work. That he that ploweth should plow in hope, and that he that thresheth in hope should be partaker of his hopes. In other words, if somebody's going to come in and demand that if you're plowing things, whatever comes up out of the ground, you should give it all the tribute to Caesar. That's what they used to do in the Soviet Union. People didn't work, and today there is no Soviet Union. There is no incentive for people to work. It was a government trying to enslave its people. Said, don't worry about things, we'll take care of you. And all they did was suppress and make slaves of their people. Socialism is the same form as communism, just not quite as strong yet. So I'm saying we have to look out for the spiritual freedom involved in these laws that are reflected right in the Christian Bible.
Give tribute to God and Caesar. This law isn't about paying taxes. It's about balance, navigating the worldly systems while keeping the soul free. True spiritual freedom is about fulfilling our duties without surrendering our inner life. Life constantly tests us to follow rules without losing ourselves, to act responsibly without being enslaved by the system. Many struggle with authority, government, bosses, institutions, and miss the lesson. Obedience in life can coexist with soul independence. That's the spiritual depth behind this seemingly simple law. Personally, it teaches me to act wisely, respect structure, but never at the cost of losing connection with the spirit. Our choices are the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. And last one, the government's duty to the people. Reward the laborer. This goes beyond economics. It's about respecting effort and recognizing the dignity of every soul's work. Every person we meet, every situation we encounter, reflects divine labor that deserves honor. Harold referenced St. Paul, "Thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treaded out the corn." The deeper truth is about hope, motivation, and freedom. When work is respected, people are inspired. When effort is suppressed, freedom and growth die. He even compares it to socialism and communism, the system that enslaves people. The hidden lesson is spiritual freedom is tied to practical freedom. If the soul is pressured or enslaved, true life cannot flow. For me, that law reminds me to honor every effort of every soul around me. Life is a network of energy and effort. When we respect that, divine love flows more freely. Some may wonder, why does Harold quote the Bible? Is he not an atheist? But the Bible contains layers of spiritual truths that many never see, because it's been used to control or suppress. Harold doesn't teach Christianity. He is just pointing the spiritual principles hidden in plain sight. When he quotes St. Paul about work and Jesus about Caesar, this is not about religion. This is about understanding the laws of life and spirit. Those who read the surface see rules. Those who look deeper see freedom, responsibility, and divine balance. He uses verses to awaken the soul to truths. Most people miss the truths that free the heart from manipulation or fear. So far, we have uncovered hidden lessons in work, responsibility, and fairness. Laws that not just shape our lives, but our spiritual freedom. Life is a classroom. Each law is designed to awaken us to who we truly are. We have reached the end of our part 2. In part 3, we will explore deeper mysteries, the law of the Holy Spirit, divine guidance, and how spirit work behind scenes to lead every soul toward freedom and love. You won't want to miss this final chapter. If you are finding the teaching as powerful as I do, please like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss part 3. Hit the bell for notifications. Let's continue this journey together into the hidden truths that guide our lives. I love you all. May the blessings be.